Hopefully it's clear now why I do it the way I do it. Canelo! Because that's what you're always going to hear when the guy goes in there and he's in his natural weight class and he's going up against somebody that is stylistically not going to show up the same way you might expect them to given the weight. Ladies and gentlemen, what you saw with Canelo Alvarez fighting Jermell Charlo after a dominant win, I'm going to break down what I saw, and it's going to be unpopular. Prior to the fight, my gut leaned Charlo. Now, I got that way wrong. Here's why I got it wrong. Charlo didn't seem like he was energized. He didn't seem like he was trying. Now, he said he felt the power and he wasn't all there, but he also, the weight affected him. He gave all these, they weren't excuses, but he gave all these reasons why he didn't seem to show up. Early on, it seemed like he was testing it out, and then he felt the bomb from Canelo, and after that, he went into caution mode. So, at no point was Charlo really hurt at any point. He took the bomb, the right hand that put him on his knee. But if you look at his face after the fight, he looked like he was fine. It didn't look like he was hurt necessarily off anything Canelo was doing. It seemed like it was a mix of things. That's what I'm breaking down. Number one, the size difference. Charlo looked like the bigger guy in there, but Canelo looked like comfortable because it's his natural weight class that he fights at. He looked comfortable. He looked more comfortable than Charlo did. Charlo didn't look comfortable at 168, hardly at all. Of course, it's new for him. He's never fought higher than 154. So it's new for him. And I want you to snapshot that point in time, because this is what you're going to see with things like that Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. business, with Conor Benn trying to leap up to a weight he's never been at, or Eubank trying to go down to a weight he's never been at. Weight matters, and it's critical you understand. Weight matters. You can't just leap weight classes and put on a master class. It's not common. You got to get accustomed, you got to get adjusted, you got to get used to the weight if you've never fought at that weight before. Again, we're talking guys that have never fought at this weight before. So in this case, I'm going to say that the weight certainly must have played a little bit of a factor, not being used to it. Second, it was clear that Charlo was not able to take Canelo's punches, but Canelo seemed just dramatically stronger than we've seen him historically in the punches. This was throwback Canelo. This was Angulo Canelo. This was the guy that we were used to seeing. This was the guy that we expected to see against Bivol that we didn't. This was the guy that we expected to see against Ryder and we didn't. This was the prime. This was the ultimate of Canelo. Canelo gave an interview recently. He said he's got about 5, 6, I don't know if he said years or fights. I want to say he said years. But the point is, he said he's not going to be in the business too much longer because he feels it. He feels the effect of the body. He's been fighting for a long time. He's got I think he's well over 65 fights by now. But the Canelo you saw in there was prime. That was the ultimate pinnacle of Canelo. So number one, weight played a factor. Canelo's strength played a factor. And I think when Jermell felt that power, once he felt it, it was like, okay, I got to get a new game plan. Derek James was in the corner telling him, okay, you're slipping. This ain't working. I'm paraphrasing, but Derek James clearly saw it wasn't going to work. My guess is they planned for a certain type of style that was basically what Floyd did against Canelo. If that's the way they trained, and I can't say it is, I'm saying that's what it looked like. If that's the way they trained, it was flawed on his face. It was never going to work because, number one, Floyd is a very specific fighter. Number two, that Canelo was a long freaking time ago, so that wasn't going to work. Canelo has evolved since then. He's adapted. Remember, he fought Danny Jacobs. He fought Erislandy Lara. He fought Austin Trout. He fought Billy Juice Saunders. He's fought all sorts of stylistically brilliant boxers since Floyd. So that style was never going to work if that was the game plan. I can't say it was. I'm saying if that was the game plan, it was never going to work. So that's number one. But also, when I'm watching Charlo, I got the sense that he was lost. Roughly around round 3-ish, he was lost. You could see it in his eyes. When he would come out of corner and he would go out, it seemed like he didn't know what to do. He was bamboozled. Canelo just kept stalking him. Canelo just kept coming after him, and he didn't have a game plan. And that surprised me because this is Jermell Charlo. This is the one of the two brothers that usually has no problem going to war. And I'm guessing the power specifically caused him to go cautious. He was cautious of eating those bombs. He didn't want to eat those shots. It's power he had never felt before because he's never fought a guy with the level of power of Canelo, obviously, because he never fought at 168, right? So I'm thinking it may just simply be that the power was so much, the gap was so wide. He felt it and said, this is not this isn't going to work. What we tried to do wasn't going to work. And I don't have a plan B. I don't have a step back plan. Similar to what Sean Porter said when he talked about his fight against Crawford, where he had a game plan going in that was working for him. And then he didn't have a fallback plan when Crawford adjusted. Same thing here. Canelo didn't need to adjust very hardly at all. I wasn't surprised at the performance. I was surprised that Charlo didn't have a plan B. And I was surprised that Charlo did not up the aggression, because I think Canelo, he seems to crumble if you go after him. He's one where you kind of have to go out. If you go back to Canelo versus Golovkin, the second fight, Golovkin's jab was there all night long, and he made it a close fight. Even though he lost, he made it a close fight because of the jab, a very effective jab that kept Canelo guessing, kept him off balance, and kept him wired to the point where he could not throw those bombs as effectively as he normally could. And I expected that from Charlo, and I didn't see it. So I can only expect that the power and the weight gap, that had to play a factor here. I'm not going to bang on Jermell because he went in there. He took the risk, right? He took the chance and he stepped up, and this is what happened. Now, Jermell was laughing. He was caught on film laughing at his brother getting dominated in the fight. They're at odds with each other. If you didn't know that, even though they're blood, they're at odds with each other. Let's not mistake what you saw here. If Jermell got in that ring, the same thing would happen to Jermall Charlo. You're like, what? Jermell, even though Jermell has been more protected than Jermell. Jermell at least took some risks in his career. Jermell has not. Jermell has sat on the belt for the longest time at 160 and got comfortable. If he got in there, and I believe he's next on deck, if he got in there against Canelo Alvarez, the same damn thing happens to him. I'm calling that right now. Because Jermell, of the two, has been less likely to go out there on their shield. So if the guy who normally goes out on his shield gets dominated like that and gets forced tentative like that, the one who's less likely to do that, damn sure that's going to happen to him. Jermall's the one that's protecting the O. He's damn sure going to have the same thing happen to him. So he needs to stop his smiling and laughing on that. And that's, again, it's not the skill of the fighters. It's levels. Canelo, I've said, is the pound for pound best. I've said that multiple times. I know places like NSB and others think that Crawford's the pound for pound. I don't regard Crawford as pound for pound. I regard Canelo as pound for pound, because pound for pound talks about any weight class essentially effectively, and you look at him in the ring. I think that's Canelo. Hopefully tonight helps defray the narrative. When you look at guys like Canelo and the way that they're able to perform in the ring, it's not just a flash blitz whatever, or a sketchy whatever, or a guy who is weight drained whatever. It's none of that. It's you go in there and you watch this guy, and he's just precision in there. And the only one who's ever given Canelo any problems whatsoever was Golovkin and Floyd Mayweather. I'll give you Bivol, even though Bivol, that's 175, and Canelo had no business up there. He himself said that. So I would next like to see Jermell get the same thing happen to him. That's what I want to see. So then let's talk about the third fight, and I'll wrap up. People are talking about, okay, now we need to fight Crawford. I don't want to see that fight, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I want to see Crawford fight a mandatory. I don't want to see him sit on the undisputed. I want to see him fight a mandatory. I want to see him take the Spence rematch if he's not going to do the mandatory. I want to see one of those two first. Then after those, then we can talk about what he does next, which initially he talked about fighting Jermell Charlo, and then Crawford went on Twitter, X, and said, okay, I'm not going to fight Jermell, even though Jermell called him out after taking the L. Now, Crawford, going by historical, Crawford should normally jump at that fight, because now Jermell has shown vulnerability. And I would like to see, I'm cool with that fight. I'd be cool with it because it's closer to Crawford's weight class that he's at right now. It'd be a good stepping stone for a rematch with Spence. Like, everything works. And Jermell would not be at the disadvantage of jumping up 2 weight classes. So I'm cool with a Crawford-Jermell fight. If Crawford wants to duck it, that's cool. Then I want to see him fight a mandatory or fight Spence rematch. I don't care, one of those two. I do not want to see Canelo against Crawford. So what do I want to see, with Canelo next? Jermall Charlo. Deal with Jermall Charlo. Do the same thing to him. Shut both brothers up. Right there, you're going to be in the headline. You're going to be all over the news because you just took out both brothers who were running their yappers. You took them both out in stellar fashion. Then for the third fight, I want to see Canelo go ahead and deal with either Andrade or Benavidez, preferably Benavidez. Here's my logic. Andrade, I'm cool with him fighting just to shut him up because they keep talking about it. Just shut him up, stop him, and shut him the hell up. But Benavidez to me is a more exciting fight fresh off this kind of a performance. Remember, Benavidez was able to deal with Caleb Plant. He sure as hell didn't have an easy time of doing it. Meanwhile, Caleb Plant's got smoked with Jermell Charlo. So if Canelo deals with Jermell Charlo next, like I think he does, there's literally no reason we cannot make a Benavidez fight next. Benavidez is with the PBC. Rumors are spinning around that Showtime's trying to get out of the boxing business. So if you're going to make that fight with Benavidez, now's the time to do it. Because after that, platform's going to get a lot trickier. I think PBC will probably make some app, some garbage. But I would like to see Benavidez as the third fight for Canelo Alvarez if we get that level. Now, if Crawford is able to step up and deal with a mandatory, so let's say Boots or Stankonia, I don't care, but deal with a mandatory or do the Spence rematch, and he looks stellar and excellent in either of those two fights, then I want to see Crawford against Jermell at 154. That'd be a good stepping stone to 154. I'm cool with that fight. Or fight somebody else. Fight Teixeira, I don't care. But fight somebody else. Let Crawford tiptoe in, get some experience at a higher weight class, stay the hell away from Canelo. I say that not because of skill. I say that because weights matter. And when you've not gone that far up, it's a different level. Floyd is a different level fighter, which is why he was able to do what he did. But even Floyd did not fight a 168 Canelo Alvarez, and now he certainly couldn't do it. Now that's a different thing. It's levels. Canelo is clearly comfortable at 168. If you're not comfortable at 168, stay the hell away from him, because you're just going to get the same thing happening to you, if not get knocked out or stopped. I close and say, even though that was a dominant performance, again, Jermell was not seriously hurt by what Canelo was doing, which means that the weight did help him from a durability perspective. He clearly is able to take the shots. He just doesn't want to. And I understand that. I wouldn't want to do it either. But for Jermell, if he's going to even think about going to 160, he said he's going to go back down to 154 and possibly consider going after Tim Tszyu to get his WBO back. Good. I support that. But if he's going to even think about going to 160 at any point in the future, he's going to need to tiptoe into that business. He's going to need to take some really soft fights to go into 160 and kind of test the waters. Don't even try to go off full throttle in that business. I would actually like to see, if Jermell does go to 160, if Chris Eubank is able to go down to 160, I would like to see Jermell against Chris Eubank Jr. That would actually be a good test for both guys on a rebuild, and it would help Eubank adjust to a lower weight class prior to potentially a fight with Conor Benn. I still want to see Conor Benn fight somebody like a Tim Tszyu, because Conor Benn still needs to be tested. He just went the fucking distance just very recently, so people are questioning the whole PED situation. I know that the narrative right now is, okay, Canelo Crawford just because. No, Canelo at 168, I think Canelo's unstoppable right now because Golovkin's already out of the business effectively. So Benavidez is the next level. He's the next one that we can see versus, Jermell, obviously, but I don't count Jermell as a threat. That's what I'm saying. Deal with Jermell because he's on the contract, but Benavidez is really the next in line. Let's be honest here. Everybody else needs to rebuild. Either they need to rebuild, or they need to take a step-in fight, or they need to take a get-back fight, or they need to deal with a mandatory, or do something else in the interim. You're not ready for this man, okay? I'm saying that not dismissing any of your skill. You're not ready for this man yet. Once you can get up to like a 160 and you're comfortable at that weight class, we can talk about it. But if Canelo dispatches Jermell the same way he dispatched Jermell, that should tell you that even 160 is not going to be enough, and you have to basically be oversized to deal with Canelo Alvarez. That's how I see it, folks.